Yo, what's up, dudes? What is up? So I finally got my RG560 sort of back to working condition again. I bought this brand new in 1988, February of 88. So coming up on 35 years. Pretty crazy. So this has an 80, like all Ibanez guitars. It has an 87 serial number, but you couldn't buy it in 1987. 88 was the first year you could buy it. So when they listed, the Ibanez wiki people know, because they don't list it as, you can't even, they don't even have an RG560 in 87, even though it has an 87 serial number. They show it as 88 and beyond, because that's really when you could get them. They weren't in stores until 88. So it was February of 88. We were rehearsing at the Knights of Columbus Hall, as you're known to do. And we took a break. We either broke a string or something. We went over to the store, and they had just gotten a UPS shipment, and they were pulling guitars out of boxes, and I saw this one already on the wall. I'm like, what the hell is that? He's like, oh, that's one of the new Ibanez guitars. I'm like, really? I pulled it down. The neck was so thin. Thing was so sleek, and Floyd Rose, and he goes, oh, yeah, no, we can do that. Low 400s with a case. I'm like, dude, walked out with it right then. Could not. Oh, and I was smitten with Ibanez. I was all in on Ibanez. This guitar set off a firestorm. I picked up a white RG550. I picked up a yellow RG550. I got that one actually used. I bought the white one new. I got a yellow RG550. Swapped the neck on that with someone who had an RG760 because they wanted a maple neck. And I liked the binding on the 7 series, and it was the black headstock, so it worked with the yellow. And so it just, I was into it. And then, of course, I got the Gem 777, one of the 777 signed by Steve Vai. And this is the only one that survives. I do have a yellow RG560, RG550, but I got it like 5 or 6 years ago, something like that. And that one's had some condition issues. The headstock had been repainted, and the fretboard looks like it had been scalloped and redone. Not scalloped like this. I did this scalloping myself in 89. The dots between the 3rd fret and the 12th fret had all been replaced. They had to be. Well, most of them were torn out. What they really looked like, you can see in the upper ones, where you can see that they're practically torn out. Kind of cut them in half with the round file. I just basically went down to Sears and bought a set of bastard cut files. Went home and did it myself. It took a couple of weeks, actually, to do it, to finally get through all of the frets. But I scalloped it and never really looked back. I did that a year after I got it in 89. In fact, I have a photo of me with the Gem. You can see this in the background, and it is scalloped. I think you can see my Strat. I still have the Strat, too. Strat might be in that photo as well. And anyway, the guitar had seen better days. It's doing a lot better now than it was just a week ago. So from head to toe, it needed to be done over. The frets were really bad. Had been flattened. They needed crowning so bad. They were completely flat. Had pretty huge divots. So they needed to be leveled. They needed to be crowned. And so that sort of set off a whole bunch of repair work to it. So I I started with the fretwork. I did a full leveling with the sanding beam, and then a little bit with some sanding blocks, and then because you worry with the sanding beam that you're screwing up the the curve, so you wind up. I switched to a radius block, and then from there, you go to the crowning file, which for that I totally recommend. I have a love-hate relationship with the StewMac Z file. On the one hand, it is ridiculously priced at I think it's $110 for a single file. But on the other hand, it does rip right through a crowning and does a perfect job. So it's so fast. It's certainly if you're a pro, you'd get your money back on it just in your time very quickly. It really does do a superior job to pretty much any other file I've ever used. So the Z file, as much as I think it's a very, it should be about $50 or $60. It's $110. It does, make short work of a crowning, and it does a perfect job every time. You're left with a tiny little strip in the center, which is what you want. It's a perfect crown. You can't complain about the price when you think about the time you save. But I still will. I put the EMGs in, again, probably in 89. They might even be in that photo. I think I've already got the EMGs in it. Everything else is original. This is an 89, so it pulls out and goes in. And, it needed, the crowning level, the polishing, and then just darkening up the fretboard, getting the fretboard nice and even, because it will dry out if you don't dress it up every few months with a little bit of mineral oil or whatever you like to use. These are the original knobs. You can see the volume knob has been pretty much, this is what it looked like when I got it. It was a black knob, but years of using it has turned it into chrome. It was missing the blade switch tip. I had a blade switch tip, but it was for there's really two types of blades, sort of a skinny and a fat, and I needed the fat one for this. And all I had was the skinny ones, which I think are for a Strat. So I had to buy one of those. Couldn't find the blade switch for it, but the switch tip, that is. Had the switch all the whole time. And I went over it with the cleaner, got it all cleaned up, got it going, and the battery was fine. I got the plates for the back. I had some, I needed others. I'll probably find them at some point. I also, there was a couple of dents on the back. I was able to take the dent out with a little bit of crazy glue, The plate was completely oxidized. I just hit it with a polisher and polished it. So I know it still looks bad, but I think it's better than it was. It was completely, at least it's a little shiny now. Before it was just half shiny black and the rest was just pure gunk. And so I just took the polisher and polished it off and whatever. But it's getting there. So as a lot of this one got a little flooded in the flood. That's why it's missing so much paint. You can kind of see the water damage. It's what happens. It's one of those things. I always like these EMGs. That's the SA. also staying much better in tune. The nut was a little loose. Had to take care of that. And, you know, had to lube everything up. And I had to set the intonation again. And I swear, I don't think the saddles are quite right. I wonder if I took them off and put them back on the wrong order at some point, because I feel like the shortest ones aren't at the end, right? It's supposed to have like a little bit of a curve to them. So I wound up shimming one of them. You can see the shim sticking out, because without it, again, it just felt very uneven. But it's much better now. So that's an 85, actually. Technically it's an 89, but the 89 is an 85 when it's in the humbucker mode. And it's an SA when it's in the single coil mode. It's staying in such good tune now. That's why I used it so much, because it was pretty reliable. But over the years, you know, it got worse and worse. It would never stay in tune like that before. You know, it's just lubing everything up and tightening and just across the board. I tightened all the, you know, the tuners down and the, you know, everything from head to toe. Batten down the hatches. And, you know, the electronics were definitely a little wonky when I first got it, you know, tried to get it going. It was kind of cutting out. I still don't think they're perfect, but they're better than they were. I used like an electrical cleaner that has lube. It wasn't Deoxit either. It's this other brand that I've had for years now, but I find it's really good. I sprayed some in the jack because I felt like the jack was a little crackly, and sometimes it just gets covered in oxidation, and you just have to, you know, put a little cleaner on it. I actually ran even a little bristle brush in there to try to clean it a little bit. I, you know, had to do both knobs with the cleaner, and got it all going. But it's so much better in tune, you know, and the frets are so much easier to play. Yeah. Ibanez RG560. Original year, 88. 87 on the serial, 88. Like when you could actually walk in a store and walk out with one. I think maybe the third week in January. You know, maybe the fourth week in January, but they were pretty much taking orders and shipping them out right after the NAMM show, which would have been in January. Well, now that I get this one going, I actually have another one, non-scalloped, non-flooded, but it also has EMGs. I think it has the same set with the 89. That guy, whoever put that in, put an extra knob in because he was too chicken shit to wire 2 knobs and didn't know what to do because comes with 3 knobs and I don't know what to do. And they also jammed the battery up here in this cavity for some reason. It's supposed to be in this one, but they jammed it in here. Again, just a nightmare install by, well, let's just call it the world's worst guitar tech. So at some point I'll get that one going and I'll get it cleaned up and working again. That one's had problems from day one too, mainly electrical problems, because they, like, for instance, they cut wires so short it couldn't get the wire to reach from like one of the pots over to the preamp. It was like I had to run a little extension on it. I'm like, boy, this guy, what a moron. But I'll get it going. It's the same pickup set. It's the 89 SA, so it's got the push. It's literally the same set. Except when I put this one in, I, wasn't scared to pull out one of the pots, the tone pot, and just make it a 2 knob instead of a 3 knob, which is the way it came from EMG. It's like you don't need that extra pot. But that dude wasn't up to the task. So at some point, I'll get that one going, because that one definitely needs some mod work. But I was real happy about this one. Finally got it going. It's definitely in its playing as good as it's played in years. And I think at the time I was you're looking at Yngwie and he had the scallop fretboard, and this was by far the thickest fretboard I think I had, and I thought Rose would be a lot easier than maple to scallop. So I actually have another scallop guitar. Bobby gave me a sort of a Chinese scalloped guitar that's like an Yngwie copy, but it was in such rough shape. Had to take the sander to the back of the neck and a Dremel to the front of it to try and get it going. That's going to be months of work, but maybe I'll get that one going at some point too. Anyway, 1987 serial number, 1988 really. Ibanez RG560. I mean, I've literally had this guitar for 35 years coming up. I'm pretty sure I got it like the first week of February. All right, dudes. There you have it. I will leave links in the description for some of the items I used to get this going again. Namely, the fret beam, the Z file, and I think that's about it. Maybe the switch tip. I think that's all I really have like a link for. Anyway, there you go. As always, thanks so much for hanging out. Rock on.